Today, we're joined by Eric Sherman, the head of national operations at First Capital REIT, where he leads property management and operations across Canada. He helped transform Toronto's Yorkville into a world-class destination, and in this interview, we unpack how that vision came to life and how he spots the next great neighborhood before anyone else does. From tactical advice to personal insights on leadership, Eric shares what it's really like to grow a career and a community. Eric, thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Let's get us started. You started at First Capital as a leasing rep back in the day. Now you're running national operations. What's one thing that helped you along that route that nobody teaches you in school?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and I would say it isn't just one thing. It's kind of a combination of a lot of different factors. So I've been with First Capital for 12 years almost. So time is one, but the opportunities that First Capital has provided and that First Capital provides its employees to grow and to create a career path and to try different departments, if desired, has been, a great opportunity for me as I've navigated my career. But what I would say is, for young people coming into the industry, and wanting to progress and, have some ambition, a couple of key things I would say, which they don't teach you in school. It's very, very simple. It's not a big secret, but treat people fairly, treat people respectfully, and be humble. And that was advice that was given to me early on in my career at First Capital, particularly the be humble part. And that doesn't mean don't come in with confidence or don't have conviction in your opinions and feel comfortable sharing your thoughts, because you should absolutely do all of those things. It's more to sort of realize that you do have to put the time in. Some people ask me, how do you get to where you've gotten? And it's been 12 years of hard work and building a reputation and treating people fairly and treating people respectfully. And honestly, if you can do those few very small, simple things, you'll be ahead of the game. So that's really it. It's no secret sauce.
I think here, especially here, the intern cycle, the pipeline that is starting young in the industry and working your way up. Like, I've heard terms like lifers, where young people come into the industry, they learn everything that they have to, they become lifers and they grow from there. That definitely leads them to growing all those skills that could help them in the future for sure.
100%. And I think First Capital over the years has done a really good job on the people and culture side of things, to try to define those career paths. And that's what I've really been trying to do since taking this role in operations. It's been now about a year and a half, and really trying to define roles and trying to help create career paths that people can see. And that also helps attract really strong, young people and people who are trying to get into the industry to sort of look at whether it's operations or leasing or development or investments or really any department. If there's a proper track and a proper way to get there, then it's a really, it's a viable option for people. And you mentioned our summer student program, maybe a little bit, and we're in that right now. And First Capital's done a really good job at creating a robust program for young interns to kind of get exposed to all different parts of our industry and our company, and hopefully attract some really great talent.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm glad. Yeah. So let's talk Yorkville.
Sure.
You helped turn into a luxury hotspot with Chanel, Kith, Michelin star restaurants, but how did it even start? What made you say this is worth that risk?
Yeah, so it's a really, really unique neighborhood in the country, and we acquired really First Capital. The core business is grocery anchored neighborhood shopping centers, and Yorkville being a very unique neighborhood where we look for a combination of high population density and high average income. Yorkville has a very unique position where it has really great demographics on both of those spectrums, where normally if you have high income, you don't really have the density. And if you have high density, you don't necessarily have the income. And so Yorkville has both. So it's also right on the transit lines. So accessibility is great. So it ticked a lot of boxes for us. And Yorkville Village, which was previously Hazelton Lanes, is it's an enclosed center, but it's a grocery anchored center. And so it hits some of our core categories.
Yeah.
So at the time, management decided that was a great opportunity. And then what we also tend to do is when we've kind of put our stake in a neighborhood that we believe in, try to acquire more properties, immediately surrounding it. So that was the strategy in Yorkville, 10 to 15 years ago. And then since then, it was like, how do we then build that into something great and continue to increase rents and continue to, bring customers. And so for me personally, when I got involved in this project, we'd already acquired a number of these assets, and it was really about repositioning it and understanding how to add value. And so for me, I didn't really have much of a fashion background at all. I didn't really know, any of the brands or any of, that world. So I just took it upon myself to treat it almost as a hobby. So, subscribe to Women's Wear Daily and, Fashion Life and all these things. And read articles and understand the brands and meet the brands and speak to people and ask the questions and be curious. And I really think that can be transferable to anything in any industry. And so through that, I started getting a really good sense of kind of who the players were and what they needed, and then figured out how we could deliver on those needs and kind of create that story, which started as a story and then evolved into a reality, and now it's running. So
it's fantastic now. So I mean, given all of that knowledge that you learned throughout that whole experience with Yorkville, what would you deem, at least in Toronto, to be the next Yorkville in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think that Yorkville is almost a bit of a unicorn, just because it mixes the heritage and culture that comes with that neighborhood, with things like I mentioned, the transit, the population density. It's always been, not always, but over the past few decades, it's evolved into this really high income demographic neighborhood. And so it's really central in the city. It's not downtown. It's kind of closer to Midtown now. So between location and history and culture and everything kind of in between, I would say it's a very unique neighborhood. I don't know if there's another neighborhood in Toronto that could all of a sudden evolve to be like a luxury core. But what I will say is, at First Capital, we're not necessarily looking only for, what could be the next Yorkville. For us, like I mentioned, our core business is grocery anchored shopping centers in really great neighborhoods. And so, Liberty Village, where we're sitting right now, is another example. It's not Yorkville, but it's a really great neighborhood that has its own characteristics. So it's our job to figure out, well, what does the customer in this neighborhood need? So it's almost like the same kind of, recipe with different ingredients that can make any different neighborhood work for that community. And that's what we're really focused on, is learning about the communities that we're in, how to service these communities, and how to evolve within them. And I will say, though, that a lot of our grocery anchored centers now are in, let's say, good demographic neighborhoods where you have good income. And the density is starting to catch up, because a lot of these neighborhoods across the country, we have markets, we have properties in Montreal, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto. And across the board, our development team is doing a really great job at entitling our assets to get more density, whether we end up acting on it or just sitting there to add value to the properties. Surrounding these properties, a lot of density is coming in. So we're in a really good pocket where the grocery market and sort of basic necessity market is really strong. And so we're watching, the neighborhoods and the communities evolve around us, and we're just, along for the ride.
Just building on top of that.
Exactly.
Okay. And specifically going back to Yorkville for One Bloor East, a couple of years ago, we saw the closure of, Nordstrom's Rack's location at One Bloor East. And I was just curious how your team, evaluated what you could bring there to reposition that whole issue.
Yeah, so it was a big surprise, really, to the industry, and sometimes these types of things aren't well-kept secrets. In this case, it was. So it was a bit of a shocker that Nordstrom was leaving Canada. So knee-jerk reaction is, this is going to be a major loss for us. But then when we really sat down and thought about it, we sort of said, okay, Nordstrom Rack at the corner of Yonge and Bloor, it's a discount banner. It's in 40,000 plus square feet, over 2 levels. What is the opportunity as the neighborhood shifted since that deal was done and since that tenant opened. What are the opportunities there that maybe we didn't have prior to Nordstrom, taking such a significant amount of space on such a significant corner. So we ran a lot of analysis to try to figure out, both financially and economically, what makes the most sense. Does it make sense to demise the unit and carve it up into a few smaller spaces? Does it make sense to lease the whole thing as one big unit? What kinds of rents could we be looking at? What kind of costs would we be looking at? But then also, what kind of tenant mix makes sense? And how do we ensure that we're bringing in sort of a mixture of really strong stability, as well as, the amenities to the neighborhood that we have found through our experience in the neighborhood over the past decade, that would work. So when we ultimately decided on a path, we decided to demise the space, and we had a deal in place with Scotiabank to relocate to the ground floor. So Scotiabank, one of the large Canadian banks, super solid, one of our major core tenants, really solid rents, and then we also worked with a group called Altea Active, and they're launching a concept, actually opening within the next few weeks, let's say, hopefully, that they're branding Avant. And this is a super high-end fitness, wellness members club, which is, really, we have found a lot of success with that category in Yorkville. So we're really, really excited about that. And then we also did a deal recently with the Ballroom Bowl. So they opened the ballroom in Yorkville, a little bit of a higher end experience than the downtown location. And that, we realized there really wasn't anything activity wise. There's a movie theater in Yorkville, but aside from that, it's a lot of restaurants, shopping, but where do you actually go to be entertained? And so they've been doing incredibly well in what was formerly a lower level kind of basement grocer, and now it's really an incredible entertainment space. And then we also worked with Nike and Mango, two apparel brands, but Nike being one of the biggest best brands in the world, to do their flagship. And I'm not sure if those brands would have jumped in so quickly beside Nordstrom Rack, but with the Altea Active, the fitness, the wellness, you got Nike, you got some new retailers, Lululemon opened across the street, a lot of activity on Bloor Street. So we really tried to puzzle our piece of the puzzle into its place, and we're really, really confident. We're really excited about the future of this property and the future of this neighborhood.
I feel like it was all a blessing in disguise, really, where you could take the space and reposition it however you want. And I think it's really become what Yorkville needed to kind of like centralize it all. And as you said, the missing components that were in Yorkville are now filled in the gaps with Bloor East. So
exactly. And I'd also say, I think it's a really good news. It was a really good news story for the industry in general. And a lot of our peers in the retail real estate industry kind of touted this as a really great example of how to, treat something like this like a blessing in disguise. And so when we were able to show that we could add value to the asset with potentially better quality tenants and a better mix, again, super quickly, it sort of shows the industry and the market what's possible. And it's almost topical because we've just seen what's happened with Hudson's Bay, which is a major topic of conversation in the retail world right now. And so, it's going to be challenging for a lot of our peers who have, Hudson's Bay locations. We don't have any. But I think a lot of them are looking at it as an opportunity as well. And how do you reposition these spaces? I mean, there's a lot of capital requirement. There's, these are big spaces, but there's a great opportunity, whether that's to, rezone and take back control, whether that's to, release, whether that's to work with, some of the organizations and the retailers who have acquired these locations. So I think, the Nordstrom, it's not new to Canada. We saw this with Target. We saw it with Nordstrom. We're a really, really resilient industry. We have some amazing professionals across the industry. So I'm actually really excited to see what our peers can do with some of these Hudson's Bay spaces.
And then for Yorkville, One Bloor, as well as your role here, what was a key moment that you had where it's like, this is going to work? or this is the right fit? And how did that feel for you when those moments happened?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at Young and Bloor, like we're still in sort of the infancy phase of this repositioning. We're really confident that everything's going to work really, really well based on what we know. So we're eager for Avant to open. The ballroom has proven to be successful since their opening. Nike and Mango are within their first 6 months of operation. So we'll see what happens there. But I would say in general, I was in leasing. Now I'm not in leasing anymore. But in leasing, part of the reason I love the retail real estate industry is because, being a part of taking a vacant unit or it could be as far back as a pile of dirt. And then you create something, you work with the brands and the retailers and you bring them to life. To me, the most, rewarding thing is just simply seeing people walk in and people walking into the stores and enjoying it. And you see it on the news and you see, articles about it. And that to me is the exciting part where, your work is tangible. You can see it, you can feel it, you can witness it. And so I would say there's not necessarily a moment, but, I would say a moment in Yorkville is the tide kind of turned and it went from us really outreaching to brands and trying to sell our story to now we don't even have very much space at all. And we're planning like 2, 3, 4, 5 years in advance for some of our spaces in our buildings. And the amount of incoming inquiries and the kind of reputation we've created for ourselves within the international luxury world speaks for itself. So to me, when we started, when my phone was down and started ringing, that could be a bit of a moment where it's like, okay, we've kind of made it here and things are working as we had hoped.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions I have today. Thank you very much, Eric. We appreciate it. And thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.
Awesome. Thanks very much.
Perfect.